What a win for the Indiana Pacers. They even up the series at 1-all in Game 2. Dominance from Pascal Siakam. Much better offensive play from the Pacers top to bottom. Their defense was still good enough. They looked way better. Their young guys looked more comfortable. Everything was what the Pacers wanted, and we'll break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday, y'all, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, Game 2 under wraps for the Pacers. They crush the Bucks. A massive second half. They just kept going and never got deterred by Bucks runs. And then they kept going again. And then Damian Lillard came out and they kept rolling still. 17-point win for the Pacers to even up the series at 1-1. They looked tremendous, way better than they did in the first game in just about every single aspect of the game. And Pascal Siakam is doing stuff that is getting him put in tweets with Shaquille O'Neal statistically, with Wilt Chamberlain first since Wilt. Are you kidding? Holy smokes, was he good? Holy smokes, were the Pacers good? And we have a lot to talk about today from a Pacers series that's at least going to 5. They're coming home with home court advantage. The Pacers just win at home the rest of the series. They'll move on to the second round, and we have a lot to get to. And I think it all starts, and it has to start, with Pascal Siakam, who has just been unbelievable for the Pacers in this series. This is why you trade for him. And funnily enough, this is how my dorky brain works. The day before, the NBA broke ties for the draft pick order this coming draft, and the Pacers lost, air quotes, their tiebreaker for their first round pick. So it's going to Toronto. It's the worst possible pick it could be. It went to 19th in the draft order, 19th and some crappy first for Siakam this year. Are you kidding? What a trade. And tonight is why the Pacers, among many reasons, got him. He talked about wanting to be a leader. He talked about leading by example. Guys have talked about looking up to him and what he means in this specific setting in the postseason for the Pacers, because he's won a championship, because he's been a good player on a great team. And in this game, he was a great player on a great team. He's been one of the best players in the whole postseason in the NBA. Another dominant performance from Pascal Siakam. 16 made shots. That's unbelievable. 16 makes out of 23 attempts. Hit 3 threes, got to the foul line, 11 boards, 6 assists, no turnovers, 37 points for Pascal Siakam. I did laugh very hard when we were interviewing. It's hard to, actually laugh in pressers, but, we're talking to Rick Carlisle after the game, and, he was asked about how Siakam's being a leader for this team, even beyond just the stuff he's doing intangibly. And Rick said, well, he's scoring 36 points per game. I thought that was a very succinct way of putting it. So obviously he was very good, and we'll talk about the why in just a second. But let me just read through some stuff that I saw today. Weed Hotchkiss from Pacers.com. Pascal Siakam is the second player in Pacers NBA franchise history to score 35-plus points in consecutive playoff games. The other is Reggie Miller. That's pretty good. From OptaStats, Pascal Siakam is the first NBA player to open the playoffs with back-to-back 35-point, 10-rebound games since Wilt Chamberlain in 1967. Unbelievable there. When you do something for the first time since Wilt, even if it was all those years ago, that's ridiculous. Matt Williams of Stats Williams, aka of ESPN Stats and Info Group, says Pascal Siakam in first round versus Bucks. And he put the stats from his first 2 games and says he's the first player with 35 points, 10 rebounds, and 60% shooting in each of the first 2 games of his series since Shaq in the 2000 NBA Finals against the Pacers. That kind of territory is what Pascal Siakam did in these first 2 games. In game 1, no one did it with him. And we'll talk about the rest of the team stepping up and looking good in this game. In game 2, a lot of guys stepped up, but he has been at an unbelievable level for this team. And it goes beyond being an amazing player, right? The leadership that this shows, the confidence, the calmness, right? He talked about this before the series. Can't get too high after wins, can't get too low after losses. And so he exuded that calmness after game 1. Every time we talked to him in the last couple of days leading up to game 2, he felt confident in his team. He said that he thinks you're going to play better. They know what they have to do. And dang, did they do it. And he was the key behind it all. Look, the Bucks don't have Giannis. I don't think that's the only reason Pascal's cooking so much, though. They are trying to take stuff away from Haliburton to a point that, it does open up the floor elsewhere for 4-on-4 opportunities. But even Haliburton's off the floor, especially when the Pacers shoot as well as they did in this game. Siakam has space and favorable matchups almost every time he catches the ball. He either has a defender who is a little slower than him, right? Chris Middleton, just a little slower. He's older. Bobby Portis, just a little slower. Brook Lopez, who that ends up happening sometimes with the way the Bucks are cross-matching in the front court. Not a lot, but enough that that's like a thing that's happening in this series. Every single time he can punish that. He's got a speed advantage. He's very confident with these mid-rangers. Anytime he sets a screen for a guard and the Bucks switch it, it's over, right? There was one play. I don't even think the Pacers scored on this one, but the Pacers got to stop. And the way that the defensive possession ended up, Siakam was guarding Dame. So that meant as the Bucks came back in transition, Dame was on Pascal. And in transition from the opposite side of the floor, they immediately throw it to him for the post-up, right? Every time. They did this during the regular season too. Every time he has a mismatch, especially in the post, the Pacers go, get him the ball. He's going to score. He's fantastic in these matchups. And so when you combine that with not slow, I don't want to say the Bucks are like slow and creaky, but not as fast and athletic as Siakam can be in bursty. They just don't have any good answers to defend him with in these games. And so he can get to the shots he wants all the time. Some perfect duck-ins to the basket during this game. Some great cuts to the elbow, which is actually threatening because he's making all these mid-range shots. He made his threes, which of course props up his efficiency, but every little gap in the Bucks defense, he can score from those spots. And so that's what makes him so lethal in this series specifically, is they just don't have a good answer for him. And Giannis would be the answer to containing him. And I'll be curious if that is what they do if Giannis comes back in the series, because he historically, at least, didn't guard Jimmy Butler in the first round last year, even when he was playing. And there was a lot to that with him being hurt last year in the first round too. But how they'll decide to do that when he's back. He obviously boosts the Bucks defense in a significant way. And him being out is not the reason Siakam is playing this well. But I'll be curious what the adjustment is for Milwaukee, because they do not currently have an answer for Siakam with the way it's going. And they went to Siakam plus the bench a lot in this game. And it was special. The first time it was special. And what it really broke open this game, big adjustment from the Pacers. Not only did they shorten the rotation by a lot, only playing 8 guys, one of the guys they cut out completely was any backup center. No minutes for Isaiah Jackson or Jalen Smith. And so late in the first quarter and the early second, and then again late in the third and early fourth, the Pacers went Obi Toppin, Pascal Siakam as their front court, right? That's something I wondered about, if you remember leading up to the series. I wasn't sure if they would get to it this quickly, but something they could go to, and something I wondered about them going to late in the regular season. That could be an option for them to kind of continue to explore and get reps in. And look, this is why, because not only did they have to use it, right? And the lineup was pretty good. It wasn't as good as it has been, but it was good enough. Is they had to use it against zone, which is not something they've had to do as much. And that front court is usually out there with Haliburton or some starters. The first time it was out there was against zone. And I think the other 3 guys were McConnell, Nesmith, and Ben Shepherd, right? So not a lot of spacing there, and that's why the Bucks decided to go zone. Well, how about you cut it up with Pascal Siakam and a heavy dose of get in the middle of the zone and make plays, whether that's with passing, whether that's posting up Bobby Portis, whether that's he was just threatening in many ways to make that a less effective zone. And of course, the Pacers get their starters back in with Siakam. They immediately tear that to death, but he helped adjust to that. He punished every matchup that came his way. He set really good screens, inverted plays. There was a play in the I think it was the third quarter, it might have been the fourth. I commented to Dustin Dopirak right when it happened. Siakam, the ball handler, they've been doing inverted pick and rolls with Siakam and guards a lot, but it was the first time I remember where TJ McConnell set the screen to get Siakam going. And so the Bucks have to decide, do they want to switch and put a small on Siakam, where the Pacers are just going to dump it in the post and he's going to score, or do they want to stick and try to fight through that screen and get to the matchup so that doesn't happen, but then either maybe McConnell's got space to get ahead of steam towards the basket, and instead Siakam just takes 2 dribbles to the right and he's got space and he's got a lane. And I think he had a cutting player for a basket on that play. Like that kind of creativity, that kind of versatility that he has as a passer, as a ball handler, as a play finisher, this whole series has been so game-changing. It's unbelievable. 36 points a game from Siakam, 36 in game 1, 37 in game 2, more than 30. I might have his stats wrong, whatever. A lot of points in both games, and so efficient along the way, so hard to guard. And as Rick Carlisle was quick to point out, very good defense in this game and really both games. Spent some time on Bobby Portis, who is 6 for 16. Spent some time on Chris Middleton, who is 6 for 14. A total complete game from Pascal Siakam, who has also been a leader, having conversations as a leader, leading by example, showing what it takes mentally to survive the kind of game 1s and get through productively game 2s. And he's talked before about like he's a simple guy, right? If he has what he wants, he's happy in any setting, and he doesn't naturally think of himself as a talkative guy. So with this Pacers team, he's realized like I have to be, more complex and more talkative to be a leader. And every turn that I can see him, he's doing that. He's being that leader by example. He's being that leader by talking in timeouts. He's being that leader by showing everyone what it takes to win in these settings. And of course, everyone's going to look like a leader when they are dominating to the extent that Pascal Siakam is in this series. Unbelievable game 2. He was the leader that got it done for the Pacers. And if he keeps playing like this, regardless of how everyone else kind of ebbs and flows to the series, the Pacers are going to have a chance in a lot of these games. And they once again had a chance in this one, and they wrote it out. And it wasn't just Siakam. Everybody who played did something significant or important or stepped up in a way that to me was extremely meaningful. And there was some key adjustments, so much more to get to after game 2 here on Locked On Pacers. Before we get to any of that stuff, though, talk about two great groups of people. First one, the good folks over at DoorDash. Do you want to make your mom smile? Because Mother's Day is right around the corner. Start it with flowers or surprise her with gifts from a brand she loves, delivered the very same day with DoorDash. Moms are a gift, so give her the best this Mother's Day. Get a gift as thoughtful as she is with DoorDash. Select from hundreds of expertly crafted bouquets to the best of tech, self-care essentials, and more delivered right to her door. If she's a sweet tooth, tech enthusiast, a beauty connoisseur, or outdoorsy, no matter what she's into, you can make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout gear, whatever, all delivered right on DoorDash. Pair flowers with a gift card, right? Books from, if she's a bookworm, a good latte, whatever. Thoughtful gifts that your mom deserves. The convenience you need, DoorDash can be there for you. With a DoorDash membership, you'll save with a $0 delivery fee and reduced service fees on eligible orders from DoorDash Pass merchants that meet the minimum subtotal. Other fees apply. Terms apply. But get your Mother's Day gifts all in one place. Get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 plus on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with the code LOCKEDONNBA on DoorDash. That's LOCKEDONNBA. Order using the DoorDash app today. Terms apply. Let's also very quickly talk about Monopoly Go. If you, believe it or not, know me, you'll know that I'm pretty competitive. And that competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. A great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like in Classic Monopoly. And I can also heist their vaults for riches for myself. And there's leaderboards to show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. And it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. And we are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Make your second listen Locked On Bucks. Hear their side of the series after game 2. Yeah, the latest on Giannis. I'll probably talk about that as this progresses. That's obviously a huge story among many things. A big story for the Pacers. They're the first road team. By the time this is out, this might not be the case. I think the Mavs are beating the Clippers right now. But they were the first road team to win a game at all in the postseason. The Lakers won the play-in tournament in New Orleans, and then every game from that point until tonight, basically a week of real life time, the home team won. It's hard to win on the road in the playoffs. That's why there's that common trope about a series doesn't start till a road team wins. Myles Turner said it after game 1. Well, guess what? A road team has won, and that's what I said already. If the Pacers just win at home the rest of this series, and that's a hard task. The Bucks are good. We've seen what they can do. They'll win this series, which is unbelievable to say. Siakam's the headliner. He deserves all the praise in the world. He was unbelievable. One of his best games as a Pacer. Every single player, I think, who played in this game stepped up in a meaningful way from last game, whether that's just from a mental perspective for some of these young guys with no playoff experience, from an actual production perspective, from just doing something that added a lot of value. And I think the guy I want to start with and the guy that deserves the most praise and the biggest, maybe not the biggest gap, but a significant gap from game 1 to game 2 is Andrew Nembhard, who, look, defending Dame's hard, and he still scored 34 points, but they wore him down in this game. There are a couple ways you could notice that. Like, they were double teaming Dame at the end of the first, like 75 feet from the basket, forcing him to get the ball. It was very funny, and the Bucks couldn't totally punish it, meaning that was the right decision for the Pacers, right? They have to think about those double teams earlier and earlier as he goes crazy, but he got worn down. You know how I knew that? Because the Bucks plan at some point in the second half was to use Dame as a spacer. He was just standing in the corner, Nembhard not letting him move at all, staying with the jersey or whoever was out there. Sometimes it was McConnell, but that he couldn't. I don't know if that was totally the reason, was just that he was exhausted because it takes a lot of work to do what he's doing. But I was very surprised how uninvolved he felt in that second half. And I think that has to do something with it. And his defense suffers at the same time because it's staggering. Like a big thing. And if you heard this, I've been wrong twice about this. The big reason I picked Pacers in 7 is with Giannis out, the no Giannis, no Dame lineups sucked for the Bucks in the regular season. Absolutely terrible. And now in both games, the Pacers have won the minutes with Dame on the floor and lost the minutes with Dame off. That happened again in this one. Dame a minus 24, which is unbelievable, as the Pacers won by 17, meaning the minutes he was off, they won by 7. The Bucks did. But that, obviously, that's not reflective of how Dame played. But, he had 34 points and 5 assists and was efficient and made 6 threes and got to the foul line. Like, he's an incredible player. And so clearly there's something under the hood about the way his defense can be tricky for the rest of the Bucks to navigate and what the taxing level of that can be. And so in the second half, not nearly as good. So credit to the Pacers. They were better on him, even though he still made some ridiculous shots. And they wore him out in a way that made it easier for them to keep rolling in the second half. And the best Bucks stretches were when Pat Connaughton got going, for example, or Bobby Portis, not Dame, which was the case in the first half. And in the second half of both games, really, he's kind of fallen off a cliff, right? So good work from Nembhard there, but he paired it with an incredible offense game. This guy averaged 9 points a game or whatever in the regular season, 20 in game 2, 8 for 11 from the field, only missed 1 2-pointer, got to the foul line, 3 assists, no turnovers. Really great game from Andrew Nembhard, and he is like built for this setting to me. Like I don't want to overhype the mentality part of all this, but he loved those chippy moments, like a little standover Pat Bev kind of thing, got into Dame in the last game, like clearly smiling when all that kind of stuff's happening around him. I just love the way he handles all that. And it was very impressive to see him step up from his first playoff game to his second one, how he loves this scenario. His cuts were amazing on offense. He hit some of those mid-range shots that were important. He was good against the zone for the few possessions he got to go against it, and his defense was great. He was spectacular. His improvements from game 1 to game 2 were so critical for the Pacers to get this done. Also, big improvements, Myles Turner, who was struggling to finish in the lane during game 1 in this game. 9 for 15, hit 3 threes, 7 boards, 6 assists, 3 blocks. Oh, filling up the stat sheet was Myles Turner. He was very excited after the game. He's the only Pacer who was with the Pacers for their last playoff win, April 27th, 2018. And this one, 10 playoff losses in a row for the Pacers in between. But Turner, a constant for both of those wins. He's very excited for Friday to have fans in Cambridge. And you could tell he was wanting to see it be a 1-1 series. 9 for 15 was, I just read the stat line, but hitting his shots, picking the right one. He had a huge corner 3 in the fourth quarter for momentum. His defense was really impressive, right? Brook Lopez was unbelievable early in this game. He hit 3 threes in like the first 5 minutes of action, and he had a nice stat line with 22 points himself, and Turner matched him in effectiveness, I thought, with his play on both ends, especially with the offense late in this game. Really good stuff for Myles Turner to bounce back, especially from an efficiency perspective inside the arc, right? If you remember what I talked about after the first game, like Haliburton was passing a lot, and those big guys, Smith and Turner, were not finishing those plays in the paint. In this one, Smith didn't play, but Turner was finishing a lot better. He was way, way better. And I got to keep going on everybody who played better. Aaron Nesmith, good defensively. Again, that matchup with Chris Middleton is tough. Middleton, 6 for 14 in this one. And Nesmith not only made more shots, 3 for 8 from deep, made 4 shots in this game, 11 points, 7 assists. He really kept the ball movement. He's the face and the epitome of when the Pacers talk about ball movement and making sure it's popping. He did that in this game, right? He always was swinging it to the right guy. When he would drive and shot fake and get past his defender, he was moving it. He was finding guys under the basket, really playing team ball, fitting in with their offensive structure. Much better game from Aaron Nesmith, who I believe only had 2 makes, 1 make in game 1. He was much better. So that's the whole starting 5, right? I haven't even talked about Haliburton, who guys made the passes from him. He made 3 threes, 12 points, 12 assists, plus 17. Even when he's not rolling and he makes 4 out of his 10 shots, he's still vital to the Pacers' offensive success because of the way he's contained. 2 guys go to him. Even when he's wiggling free just a little bit, they panic and rush out to him. He made an early 3. I thought that was big for his confidence. And as long as he's out there and the Bucks are scared of what he can do, that's still going to open up stuff for other guys. You saw him pass it well in the first game, I thought. Guys just weren't making a lot of those shots off of those passes. In this game, they did more of that. He made more of his shots. You know that I always talk about his 2-point percentage in these games. He made some 2s. He got to the foul line. Really great game from Tyrese Haliburton. The biggest improvement off the bench. So there's 2 things to say. second half TJ McConnell was so much better than any other version of TJ McConnell we've seen in this series. He was getting to the basket and actually making those shots this time in that second half. His defense on Dame was effective. They need him to be better than he was in game 1 or the first half of game 2 because of how critical he was to their bench success during the season, especially if he's going to be playing with Haliburton or with Siakam, right? He's going to be that secondary ball handler all the time. That improvement he had from half to half was good. And I think for the confidence of what he can be and how he can contribute, people were rightly saying in the first half, tweeting, oh, you got to get TJ out of the game. He was not playing well in the first half. Remember, he got totally benched in their last playoff series. Now, he's a much better player now than he was then. He's more effective at a lot of things, but he was not playing well. And his size makes it tough to kind of use him in some scenarios, but really good as the game picked up, much better in the second half. Looked like the end of regular season TJ. And I think that is the most significant maybe growth that we saw in this game, or like importance of what it will mean in future games. But his actual growth from game to game wasn't as high as maybe Nembhard's or the other guy I want to talk about off the bench who was sensational, Ben Shepherd. Whew. He went from the lights are bright to ready to go. And that's what he's kind of been all season, is just sliding in, ready to go. Doesn't matter that I'm a rookie. Doesn't matter that I'm a 26th pick. 3 for 4 from the field, 2 threes, 3 boards, no turnovers, 8 points, plus 11, the highest of any player off the bench in plus minus. Defended well. Right, got switched on to Dame a few times, no problem. Was on Chris Middleton sometimes, no problem. Made the shots, that's all fantastic. The key moment of the game, or a key moment of the game, early fourth quarter, the Pacers were up 9, I think, to start the quarter, and slowly the Bucks chipped it down to 4, and they had the ball. Pat Connaughton made a free throw, and they had the ball after a flagrant foul. Jay Crowder has a wide open 3 for the Bucks, chance to cut it to 1 possession, and he missed. And not long after, on the other end, Ben Shepherd comes out of the corner off a shot fake, or it might have been in transition, puts it on the floor, goes under the block, reverse layup, looks like Dr. J, spins it up and in. And for the Bucks crowd, who was so amped to start the fourth, watching the team come back, generating a huge open 3 with a chance to make a big comeback, to see that Shepherd shot go in, and I think it extended the Pacers lead to 8 or 9 again, where it was to start the quarter. So deflating. Absolutely deflating for the Bucks, absolutely deflating for the crowd. Huge moment for Shepherd. He was much better in this game. And like McConnell, you have to be more confident if you're Rick Carlisle now, after how that went. They're popping some of those boomsticks around. Sorry for the loud noises you can hear. And Obi Toppin was really solid. The fact that they can play him in those 4 or 5 front courts with Siakam, he had 8 boards. He had 9 points. He was good enough for them to win. Everybody was good enough. Everybody stepped up. And the Pacers get it done. The series is 1-1. What adjustments were key in this game? The rotation was different. What does that mean going forward? Plenty more to talk about as we close out today's show, breaking down the Pacers win in game 2. Before we get to any of that, though, we have got to talk about FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball in full swing. Phillies have won a bunch in a row. Let's go. And FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed just by signing up on FanDuel. How about that? That's $150, win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Let's also quickly talk about BetterHelp. This next segment is brought to us by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really start to get to you. It is important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today, I want to say how I really feel about something. You might even be thinking the same thing this week. Shout out to Michael Malone for this one. Doesn't call a timeout of the last possession. Jamal Murray takes it coast to coast, scores at the buzzer. Nuggets win game 2. People are too reactive to the result of a play when they think of a coach should or should not have called timeout at the end of games. Obviously, I am also kind of doing that when saying that the Nuggets made the right choice by not calling a timeout. But I usually think that the right process is made by coaches in those moments, and the reaction to it is not based on the decision, but more so what actually ended up happening. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports teams, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you are thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Still in the court here at the Fiserv Forum where they're cleaning up, so sorry for all the loud noises. Thanks for making us your first listen. Check out Locked On Bucks. Locked On NBA will have the latest from every game around the association. Big win for Minnesota. I'm assuming the Mavs are still winning, but maybe they're not. But you can find out on Locked On NBA where our hosts break down the latest and greatest from around the association. Adjustment, big one for the Pacers. Talked about this after game one, asked Rick Carlisle about it. They went 11 deep in game one. And now that I've thought more about it in retrospect, I actually get going to the full 5-man bench group because it was so good in the regular season. They didn't pull the plug quick enough is truly what the problem was in that game. Either way, they really needed to shorten it. And boy, did they. They didn't go from 11 to 9 or 11 to 10, cutting out 3 guys who played in game one in the actual rotation. Isaiah Jackson didn't play. That was more because Jalen Smith looked so lost in the first half of game one. Jalen Smith, who was better in the second half, did not play in this game. And Doug McDermott, who was not effective in game one, also did not play. 3 guys completely cut from the rotation for the Pacers in this one. And that didn't even lead to that many more minutes. Aaron Nesmith got a big little bump for Andrew Nembhard. Turner played more, but the bench guys were about what you'd expect for them. But it was meaningful. It was really a tight 8-man rotation. The Pacers kind of treated this like a must win. Who knows if Giannis will be back for game 3 or not, but if they lost both of these without him, it would have looked terrible for the rest of the outlook of their series. So going 8 deep with the 3 bench guys of McConnell, a guard, Toppin, a forward who you can play in small or big lineups, and Ben Shepherd, who can be your wing, right? They've got one guy kind of each class of guard, wing, big. That's what it needed. That's what they needed to do. That's how they needed to adjust. It was the right decision. And I wonder how rigid that will look, right? Let's say in game 3, they maybe try to get 5 to 10 minutes of Jalen Smith out there, for example. Maybe that's the case. Rick Carlisle even alluded to Jarris Walker playing really well with the scout team during the series, so much so that he told Jarris Walker to be ready. And this game was a blowout, and the Bucks waved the white flag late. Jarris got to play. It was only 2 minutes, but his first playoff experience, Kendall Brown's first playoff experience, that maybe isn't actually meaningful for the rest of their careers. But I wonder how rigid this will be, because this was the rotation that worked. It won the Pacers a game. They're, of course, naturally going to lean into doing that going forward for the rest of the series. But how flexible can they be? What does the series require? If Giannis returns, does that change things? Do you need Jalen Smith to potentially defend him? That was a big adjustment. They defended Dame kind of similarly. They were blitzing him a little more this time. You could tell there was much more of an effort from Nembhard and McConnell to make sure they got right back into his shooting pocket as soon as possible, chasing him over those screens. That was really meaningful. Again, he's amazing. He's hitting everything. Drop coverage can't work, doesn't work against him. He's going to make these threes in his sleep, but making it hard on him, making sure he thinks about it is significant, and he's not turning them up with the passing. That continues to stand out to me. He's getting to the line, he's making threes, but only 5 assists. Again, not the highest on the Bucks. Someone else, in this case, Chris Middleton, takes that mantle, right? That's significant that the Pacers are turning him into a scorer exclusively. That matters. It's not going to look pretty. 34 points is ridiculous, but they did better on him in this game than they did in the first game. I thought that was extremely noteworthy. This is minor, but I think this speaks to an emphasis from the Pacers that you saw in the second half and that I mentioned on the last show. You could tell they were really trying to make sure they played with their pace the whole time. The moment I noticed it, in the middle of the first quarter, ball flies out into the crowd. Someone in the first row catches it, like drops it, whatever. Siakam runs over to get it. Right. They want, and I know that I talk about that a lot. It's such a little thing, but that's when they're trying to play fast, even after turnovers that go out of bounds, even after makes, is when they're sprinting out to get the ball and try to get moving. There was a play where Brook Lopez scored, but he fell down on the make, and Haliburton pushed, and he knew that somebody would be open, and then Turner got the ball, and then so Brook Lopez is gone. So then Obi Toppin's man runs up to Myles Turner throws to Obi. They score, right? Like, that's the high-paced stuff that when you realize you have those chances, you do, and that wears down a team that can't keep up with you. And the Pacers played with their pace for the whole game, all 48 minutes in this one. That was a big adjustment. The joking adjustment would be they made their threes. They did not miss 13 in a row. This time, 16 for 36 were the Pacers from deep, and only 5 turnovers. They had 7 turnovers in the first half of game one. Those 2 little cleanup things aren't necessarily adjustments, right? That's what Rick's talking about, not among many things, when he says we just got to play better, right? They shot better. They took care of the ball. They were better at executing their defensive game plan. All that stuff is just playing better. That wasn't anything particularly nuanced in terms of a coverage change or rotational change, all that kind of stuff. But it matters. It matters a great deal and was significant for the Pacers in this game that they were able to do that. They made a lot of shots in this game. Shot 56% from the field, 38 assists. They did a lot of stuff really well. But those are the ones that stood out to me. Playing with pace for much more of the game. less mistakes from their young, inexperienced playoff guys in general. The way they defended Dame was a little bit better. They were more locked in to that game plan and cutting the rotation down to 8 guys. A lot of stuff that I think they'll try to do again, but again, Giannis's return will change a lot of their approach and what matters going forward in this series. And it's a 1-1 series. It's going to be really fun to cover this one until at least Game 5. I will be back in this building now for sure next week. Looking forward to bringing you more coverage of Pacers Bucks tomorrow. Ty Windish, who covers the Bucks for the Eurostep podcast, will join us. We'll break down the series from both teams' perspective. Friday, Adam Friedman's back. For those of you OGs who've listened to the show for a while, we'll break down the playoffs from a Pacers perspective heading into Game 3, and then shows throughout the weekend breaking down Game 3, looking ahead to Game 4. Yeah, Giannis updates will be plentiful. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. I hope you guys can too. It's been a fun series, and the Pacers are on the board. They've got to win. That's huge. That extends how much playoff, even experience they get, how much data they get about what their team building is going to look like. And we'll break it all down here on Locked On Pacers as the series progresses. The cleaning up is getting louder. It's time for me to go. We'll be back tomorrow talking more Pacers with Ty Windish. I'm on Twitter at Tony R. East. The show is there at Locked On Pacers. Till then, everybody, have a wonderful day.